If you've been following the channel, you would know that I recently decided to open a scrapyard and I'm working day and night to try to get this open. I have a tendency to oversimplify things and it's actually been a lot harder than I thought. But as a particularly awesome blessing, I came across a guy that has a 6,000 acre ranch he wants to clean up and it's loaded with scrap metal of various sorts. This is really hard work, so hard that if you are like my son who's been helping me, you fall asleep in the truck on the way home from work because you're exhausted. Studying school kids. It is also dirty work. This is me standing next to a 4.5 foot tall valve that probably weighs about 300 pounds. I have made a career out of doing dirty things that nobody wants to do though. As I outlined in the last video, we broke this down into categories. The first category was small things that we had to pick up by hand. This is the most tedious work, and I don't know who needs 5 million of these things, but here they are. We have most of the small stuff picked up now, and we've been focusing on the mid-sized stuff that we can pick up with the skid steer. With the skid steer, we picked up a lot of wire, a lot of motors, and a lot of just random stuff. There was about 25 cattle feeders out there, and we took them all. Even if they had a tree growing out of the middle, we took them all.
Tree and all.
We're now moving on to the bigger stuff, and for the bigger stuff, we rented this. This is an 8,000 pound SkyTrack. This thing is really awesome and can basically lift anything. Well, almost. Some of the things we have to cut up, like this maintainer, and that's actually hydraulic fluid that's making it flare up like that. It also telescopes out, which is really helpful. In the 9 days that we've been on this project, we've pulled out over 200,000 pounds of various metals, and some of this stuff is really pretty cool. Where the magic happens, or where you make money and this sort of thing, is sorting all the various metals out. Keep in mind that when you're a scrapper, there are really two kinds of products that customers bring in or offer to sell: prepared metal and unprepared metal. So as far as unprepared metal, when I send out a roll-off or I do a cleanup like this, I get a hodgepodge of random metals. But because it's random, it's priced on the lowest grade. So all the metal that you can sort is basically an upgrade. On top of that, there are just some items that you can just sell instead of scrapping. For example, we've gotten a ton of diesel motors from this job. Now, motors are not particularly desirable to steel mills because they're usually made out of cast iron. On top of that, diesel motors are usually really big. So they're too big to sell as heavy melt, which is a desirable grade, but because they're cast, they're really hard to cut up. So basically, they're hard to sell. But if you can sell them as motors for people that want to rebuild a motor, then I can get a lot more than if I just scrapped them, and I don't have to worry about processing. Upgrade. There's also stuff like this wire. We pulled about 25,000 pounds of wire out of here, and there was about 6 different types of wire. This is a big score for me because I'll sell a lot of this wire for like 10 or 20 times what I paid for it. It was really a pain to sort, but at the end of the day, it's going to be a huge winner. There were also these really cool cages. There was like 39 of them, and I'll use these in the scrapyard, so I'm pretty excited about that. Then there's also stuff that's really a pain and not super profitable, like tractors. Tractors are mainly made out of cast, which is not a desirable metal. Tractors are also not ideal to move. They require a trailer, or I would just rather prefer taking a roll-off, sticking everything in the roll-off, bringing it back. Same thing with forklifts. Then there's also like a lot of big trucks and cars, which have a lot of non-metal pieces and generally sell for less at the mill. On jobs like this, sometimes you can find a cool car that is worth something and you can pull it to the side and sell it, but I haven't seen anything like that yet. There's also a lot of stuff that we'll have to cut up on site and then move and cut up more, which makes the processing cost high. But you take the good with the bad. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you want to see in my videos coming up, and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you soon in the next video.